Hey, welcome to another episode of BBT Big Brain Takes.
The worst
Today,
anime podcast on the internet.
Correct.
dang, you hate.
Because it's full
I
thing.
mean, you're not wrong. The worst anime podcast on the internet. You hate to see it, but you also love to see it. And today, I am joined by the boys. First, we have Michael. Say hello, man.
Guten Tagen.
That's what's up. Next, we have the boy Sam, Stardust Nobody.
What's good?
What's really good. And last, but certainly not least, we have Yuto. Say hello, man.
Hi.
Hi.
No joke
Short
this
and
time
sweet.
about having a gun held at your head?
Hey,
Damn it,
we don't
Sam!
touch
I pulled up a Nerf gun just for this situation.
Dude, it's
Same.
just a water gun, bro. It's just a water gun. And of course, I'll be hosting this episode. I am Forte, but you guys can also call me Josh, which very cool.
Hi, Josh.
And today-
Hi, Josh.
Oh, well, thank you. Hey guys, how are you
Joshua.
guys? Today we have an awesome episode where we're going to list out our most underrated, in our opinion, anime characters.
In anime. Did we
Oh
say anime
yes,
characters?
our most underrated. I said anime characters.
Well,
but
underrated
you didn't say
will-
in
people-
anime.
people-
I thought
just
you
in
said
case
underrated characters, and I'm like, in anime. And then I'm like, oh no, you did say anime.
Our most underrated anime characters in anime.
Just to give a little disclaimer, this is underrated characters in our opinion, in our mind. We spent a long time
Yeah, I
trying to
said
figure
in
out
our
characters.
opinion. Yeah.
In our opinion, and just want to make it very, very clear. This is from our experiences, our viewing of the fandoms, the fan base. Obviously, there are people who love characters that are really, really vocal about that not everyone else loves. We can't know every single person. We're simply commenting on our time in being in touch with the anime fandoms that these shows are related to, and just our overall viewing over these shows and these characters across the years. Just want to make that very clear, because there are some people who are going to be like, that character's not underrated. I'm like, we're just going off our own experiences. We can only talk about what we've seen in our life.
Exactly. When we were making this list, we had a lot of back and forth where one of us would say, "Oh, I think this character's underrated because of this," and the other three would be like, that character's not underrated." So you can see there was even
Expect
discourse
another topic in
within
the
our
future.
group making this video. So if you feel this character's actually not underrated or based on your beliefs and your interpretation, then that's fine. Let us know in the comments. I think that would make some interesting discourse in and of it's by itself.
And a character not being underrated is not a bad thing. It's actually a good thing. I'd love these characters
that's
to
a
get
good
more
thing.
attention. That's a good thing.
Yeah, if you were to tell me my character's actually not underrated, that would be a W in my book. So
Hey, yo,
I'm definitely
same, bro.
down with that. But yeah, we're gonna go ahead and get started. Who wants to lead us off with their first underrated character in anime?
I'll take it from the beginning. This is probably the one
Sounds
that I have the
good.
least to say about, but it's kind of a hot take. We all know Code Geass, right? We all know how a lot
Yes,
of the
of
girls
course.
are really, really popular. You have your C2, you have Colin, then you have some
No.
lesser favorites like Shirley and Euphemia. While my favorite girl is C2, my hot take is that my second favorite girl is Millie Ashford. I love Millie, and I think that character is super, super, super underrated and very overlooked. While a lot of the time she's on screen, she is kind of just a joke character, I think there's a lot more to her, and she's genuinely a very strong and supportive person that consistently puts the characters and the people that she loves around her first in front of her own emotions. We see in R2 especially that she has her own doubts and her own obstacles to overcome when it comes into her life in the school and her relationships with friends like Shirley, whatever. You could tell that she has quite a lot of connection with Lelouch, and it's pretty obvious that she does have romantic feelings for him, at least in some capacity. But she still, because of her sheer love for her friend Shirley, lets Shirley take the baton until things happen. I really like Millie. I think she's, again, very overlooked, and I think she's a very strong, supportive person who, as I've said, just to repeat myself, puts a lot of people around her first, and I really like that in a character. I think she's funny, I think she's genuinely really nice, and I think she gets, like, kind of shat on just because she isn't immediately integrate to the deeper elements of the plot. The Zero arc, the Black Knights, the stuff about Lelouch's past.
God,
But-
like she kind of vanished after a while, doesn't she?
She does vanishes, but she, at the end of the day, it's also really sad when you see at the end how few of the friends that she cared so much about are left. And, like, I will always remember the scene, at least in the original, when the bombing of the school happens, and then you just see Rolo is the only person left at the academy, and he runs up and gives Millie the biggest hug, and you're like, holy shit. These really are the only two people left. These really are the only two people left from this class, and it's really, really heartbreaking. In season 1, we know that Millie is one of the few people who actually knows about Lelouch's original identity, and it gives Lelouch another person other than C2, because at the time C2 was the only person Lelouch could ever be really truthful to actually confide in and actually look for answers. He talks to her about Shirley, to which she gives actually helpful advice and doesn't let her own romanticism of him and her own opinions of the situation and her own biases take hold. She gives really cool insights to the characters. She is really strong, she's really supportive, and I think she's just genuinely very, very underrated. That's just my hot take. I don't think anyone has anything to say about this. I hope.
I mean, I'd like to talk about this more. Like, honestly, I have to agree with you. Apart from like and Collins, I think like if you have to have a favorite female in Code Geass, would have to definitely fall to Millie.
Obviously, you have a lot of strong ones. I'm just saying, obviously, you have a lot of strong ones. You have Colin, you have Shirley, you have Yuffie, you have Cornelia. But Shirley is just, I like Shirley. I like Colin. I like Yuffie. But Millie for some reason just does it for me. She fits into the character archetype I love of really goofy on the surface and really, really happy and go lucky, but has that deeper, a bit of a darker, sadder side to her. And I also forgot to mention like her entire character arc with Nina. Like, her character arc with Nina, even if Nina's kind of a bitch, you can tell that Millie, throughout the entire time, genuinely cares and does everything in her power to get through to this girl. You can tell Millie tries so hard to get through to Nina. Nina obviously doesn't accept because Nina's bloody Nina. But you can tell Millie just cares so much about the people around her, even if they do really shitty things.
I was gonna agree with you, Sam. I think part of the reason with Millie being so underrated is a lot of people, I had this discussion with you and others about people often dropping Code Geass or not really liking the school episodes or the student council episodes when they're more geared towards that. And that's where I feel like Millie really shines. Mm-hmm. You can tell that she's a person who genuinely cares about her friends, her classmates, and her members of the student council in a lot of ways and factors. What I think is a lot of people don't like those episodes, so they kind of overlook Millie's character. And I think those episodes are where she really shines. You just see how caring of a person she is and how she's having to deal with caring for her friends and other, what should I say, more social aspects of being in the higher echelons of the Code Geass world, if you will.
Yep.
I thought her character really shines in that aspect. But if you're overlooking those episodes, or if you think those episodes are a waste and you kind of turn your brain off until the next action scene or the Black Knights or the war and all that, I do genuinely think you miss out on a lot of those good moments, not with just Millie, but just all the characters. I think those moments are very important. They give you a bit of a reprieve, and they also help build up these characters as, you know, just being kids.
As humans. It humanizes a lot of characters and humanizes that whole... It essentially humanizes the essential side of Lelouch Lamperouge, because obviously the thing with Lelouch is that there's the big three Musks. There's Zero, Lelouch v. Britannia, and then Lelouch Lamperouge. And the different
Lelouch is Zero?
And the different people he confides in each of those personas. And I feel if you didn't have those... I feel if you didn't have those important school moments, I think, yes, I agree, they could be a little bit too wacky, but if they didn't exist at all, then that whole Lelouch Lamperouge side would feel so much less believable, and it would be like, why is Lelouch doing this? There would be absolutely no reason for us to care about that persona or side of him. But I think Code Geass does it enough well. I can understand, again, why it bugs people, because I think, again, it is a bit too wacky at times. It's a bit too wacky, but I don't think that's a problem with them being slice of life school moments. I think that's how they handled some of them, but I think Millie is genuinely one of the stronger points in that, and I think she actually has character moments that bleed into other parts when she is the person who knows who Lelouch is at the beginning. She knows he's the Prince of Britannia. She in the China arc with Nina at the conference and how Nina goes batshit insane, and Millie has that whole character moment. You have Millie with Shirley, which is a big part of that arc. You have Millie at the end, which is really, really important in her big character journey of when she grows into the news reporter and she goes out into the real world instead of hiding behind the mask of Ashford. I really like
her interactions with Lloyd are great too.
Yeah, I love her with Lloyd.
Lloyd.
Yeah. Lloyd's great. One of the best characters in the show. Funny as shit and genuinely really cool.
Might make
for real.
Next time I want to make my profile picture Lloyd.
I always think of Colress with Lloyd. They always just have a similar vibe.
I think Colress is a bit deeper than Lloyd, but I do like
I agree with that. I agree with that, yeah.
I mean, they're both mad scientists.
I am mad scientist.
It's so cool. Son of a bitch. Sounds good. But yeah, I agree with you on Millie, Sam. That was a good one.
Has anyone got anything else to say on Millie, or we want to move on to the next character?
I think you really hit nail on the head of that one.
Yeah, I think so.
So who's going next, Yuto or Michael?
I'll go next.
Sounds good to me.
Now, a lot of my choices are sort of just from like either what I've noticed or from my little fucking like
Inner
guilty
circle.
pleasures.
Your inner
Yeah,
circle.
inner circle like guilty pleasures that I've noticed, and the first one might not necessarily be underrated in the eyes of the actual people who watch this, but just because it's very niche what I do. My first thing I'm going to talk about today would be Drum from Beyblade vs. Gotchi.
What the hell, bro? I can't say shit about this.
Yeah, I know you
say
can.
shit.
Yeah, you're on your own there.
want to
I did
talk
watch
about-
Beyblade, the
Also,
original.
Michael, move that mouth away from your mic, bro. Move that mouth away
how
from
about
your
that?
mic.
Better?
Yeah, a lot better.
I just want to say how I think unironically, and even when comparing to possibly other characters from other shows, he's just. I think a lot of the time when people watch shows, they kind of, especially with any Twitter, they try to make they try to make the characters more than they need to be. But with Drum, he's just fun. He's just really fun to like watch this fucking dumb socially inept shit just make his way through everything.
I agree. I think a lot of people. I like to think deeper about some characters, and I do think some characters are deeper than they are given credit for. But I too like it when you just can have a fun character, just that character you look at and you're like, you're funny, you entertain me, you have a good personality, a good spirit. You're just fun. You're just a pleasure to be around.
And that's just Drum for me in a goddamn nutshell. He's socially inept as fuck. He gets really flustered when like he meets people he respects, and overall, it's just fun to see this fucking dumb kid just kind of go at it. And they brought him back. They brought him back in like the new series because like legacy characters and cameos. And I'm happy to say that he's probably just as like he's the same like he's the same character that I found love in the first place. And I'm happy about that.
That's adorable. It's like Michael talking about his future wife that he's never going to have.
Oh my god.
I thought there was no shit. I thought this was a safe place for podcasts.
Yeah,
safe
I
place,
bro.
bro.
Safe place,
Whack,
dude.
whack.
Dude, anime's for kids, bro. I mean, this is a safe place, bro.
We're not talking about Yu-Gi-Oh right now, Yuto. We're not talking about Yu-Gi-Oh.
I mean, I thought we were talking about Pokemon. So
Well,
that's
we're about to talk about Yu-Gi-Oh because Michael kind of led me to my first character on my list.
Whoa, you're just gonna all right.
I mean, no.
I wasn't sure if you were done, Michael. My bad.
No. I started when you say I knew from the start that when I talked about Drum, I wouldn't really have like
we can't comment.
long amount to talk about.
Yeah, we can't talk about it. There's nothing.
I thought you were ending your thought too. My bad.
Character that like isn't really talked about anywhere else.
He's just a fun guy.
All right, so
who's going next? Forte, you take it on.
Yeah,
I just.
Are we cutting that part of the audio out? Since
no.
Oh, okay.
No, it's just natural this way.
No, my ear raping apparently.
Oh no,
yeah.
I can't be bothered to edit this stuff. But we'll eventually become professional. Right now, I've heard enough. What are they? What's the podcast called? Nux. I've heard enough.
Trash Take.
Oh, Rain Cafe.
Rain Cafe. Sorry, I've heard enough Rain Cafe episodes where Nux will randomly start glitching out and they fix it on the spot. Who gives a shit? Who gives a shit?
Yeah, no, you're here for the content. You're here for all the fun quality. But I just thought it was a good segue since Yuto said children's card game, and Michael mentioned that it was a character that he just really liked because he was happy, he was fun, and it didn't have to be anything super deep.
Well, that was me.
Okay. But that led me to my character, which is the Neo new hyper strong duelist Saratari Shingo. So this character's on my list. This character's on my list for a lot of the reasons you said, Michael. I just found Saratari Shingo really fun. Every time he was in a duel, my eyes were kind of glued to the screen. He had this pizzazz.
He might be Ghetto Yuya, but he's fine Ghetto Yuya.
I like Saratari.
He's cool. I'm actually going to get to that. My deal with Saratari Shingo is he's that typical kind of... If I were to put him in a box, he'd be similar to Manjome from GX, right? With a little less character development, probably. But he was just so much fun to watch. A lot of people didn't find his humor great. They didn't like him. They thought he was a waste of space. But every time he was on screen, I had a genuinely good time.
No shit talking. Big Dick Shingo swag Saratari. He almost beat the final antagonist.
Well, I will say about Shingo is I didn't enjoy him until first season, and not really in season 3. I started enjoying him to the point where he's kind of like the underdog of the Lancers. He's from Standard Dimension. He only has pendulums, no extra deck summonings, and in that anime, the lore was extra deck summoning is infinitely better than just or original, obviously standard decks. And Shingo Sawamatari makes some really interesting plays against the opponent, and he's always the underdog. The biggest issue is he's always faced against an opponent that's completely stronger than him, yet he puts up a really good fight. His duel against Yugo, his duel against Kaito, his duel against Yuya as well, even though I wasn't a huge fan of
his duel against Zack.
But I will say his duel against Yugo and Kaito really made me like him a lot more because he made some really strong and really interesting strategies against how to fight them, even if he was very underpowered as a duelist and as like a deck.
Right. So Sawamatari Shingo for me, like I said, always brought this pizzazz. I like how he'd always be dancing and doing these kind of, I guess, even meme type moves. And while he didn't win a whole lot of duels, I was always entertained in his duels. The first duel that I really, really, really enjoyed Sawamatari was his duel against Yuya in the Miami Championship. That was the tournament.
Was that one when he was using Yosinju's?
Yes.
Yes, that was when he was using Yosinju's. And what I really loved about that duel is he comes to Yuya wanting to have this entertainment duel. Yuya had been trying to obviously make Egao work, make everyone smile, and he really believed in entertainment dueling. And the first duelist, well, I guess not the first, but for me, the best duelist that first gave a true entertainment duel that matched Yuya's and kind of lived up to what he wanted to spread to the world, which I thought was a pretty good message.
Was Jack Atlas. Hey.
Okay.
You say?
But he was good. Was Sawamatari Shingo in that duel. And it was an exciting duel. I actually enjoyed the action cards in that duel, the movement, the maneuvering. I thought it was really great. Just the way Shingo even put aside his, I guess I want to say, kind of his blind dislike for Yuya to have this kind of duel. The way he accepted his loss so gracefully, I thought was really great. The duel had a lot of action. It was really fun. And oftentimes later in the series, Yuya would often refer to that duel with Shingo as being the duel that he wants to spread to the world. So even though Shingo is this like comic relief, this kind of meme character, he actually, what should I say, affects Yuya's character quite a bit. That is the dueling he always wanted to have throughout Arc 5. And you can say what you like about Arc 5 and Egao in general. Sometimes for me it was a little overdone, but I thought
especially in
overall,
one certain duel towards the end.
Yeah, exactly.
I think there were some duels where it works.
I thought the message overall was great though.
Off the top of my head, I can think about 3 of Yuya's entertainment duels that genuinely worked as entertainment duels. His first duel against Sawamatari, his second duel against Jack, and his last duel against Reiji. Those are the 3 duels when I think of like entertainment Yuya duels.
I agree with those.
I think those are what Yuya tried to be as an entertainment duelist and what Yuya's duel should have been from the beginning. They were fun, they were exciting, they were exhilarating, they had a lot of movement, they had a lot of cool moves, a lot of cool monsters, a lot of cool cards, a lot of cool reveals. I like those duels quite a bit. I think those duels all hit a nail on the head.
And I thought Sawamatari Shingo, with Yosinju's as well as with BIS actors or Underworld Troupe, whatever you want to call them, Makai Gekidan, dub sub translations. I thought all of Sawamatari Shingo's duels were really good. I love that duel against Yugo, and once again, he put up a great show and he lost, but he still was actually very content with the duel because at the end of the day, Sawamatari Shingo, like Yuya, was an entertainment duelist, and he took great joy in showing what he could do to the crowd, even though he didn't take a lot of wins. And it was weird with Sawamatari Shingo. He got good character development, and then sometimes they give him steps back. There was a time in Synchro Arc I remember a lot where he actually throws the mic to Yuya because he said, "This is your time. You are the star of this show." And if you know anything about Sawamatari Shingo, that's a really good development for him because he's very a little conceited, a little cocky, of course. I thought his relationship with Crow was really well done, even though once again, Sawamatari Shingo didn't pick up a lot of wins. I liked during the last duel against Zark, he puts on Yuya's pendulum and actually puts up a great fight. Fighting with someone he makes a genuine connection. I feel like people really sleep on Sawamatari Shingo. They didn't find his gags funny. He didn't hit for a lot of people, which I understand. And the writing around him, of course, wasn't excellent. But he's just a really fun character that I saw affecting a lot of the plot, and he was always a joy to see on screen. So I thought I'd start out with him. Sawamatari Shingo from Arc 5. I thought he was a pretty cool character, actually.
Now lead us into the next one, Yuto. Entertainment.
All right,
go for
since
it.
Forte said we're not talking about overhated but underrated characters. Well, I'll
That's
give
right.
you a character that fits both of the categories while sticking to the topic of Yu-Gi-Oh, and
I know
that's
who it is.
and ding ding ding, that's Go Onizuka, from
Yes, sir.
Vrains, Yu-Gi-Oh Vrains. I am one
Trash.
of the very few
Mm.
people who actually really love Go Onizuka. Um, and I think the fan base overhate definitely made him like him a lot more. Go Onizuka was an entertainer. Obviously, we introduced that he's kind of like a mix of Crow, where he cares a lot about the kids and he does everything for the orphanage, but he is very prideful and he's the king of the duelists. And Yusaku, Playmaker, when he debuts in the Link Vrains world, he obviously gets jealous. He wants to challenge him fair and square, and he wants to win and take his back as the rightful king, which is a fair sentiment. If you are a celebrity, you always want to reach the highest and be. And when your position is taken away, the logical thing is to take your position back. But after he duels against Yusaku and he loses, I think, and then he gracefully accepts, it's like, I lost this duel, but it was pretty fun. And for a while, the biggest issue with Go Onizuka is a lot of times he doesn't show up in first season, but when he does show up and when he fights against Genome, I did like the underdog mask taking he did bring with his dueling, and I really like that aspect about him. He's a really indie surface. He kind of seems like an arrogant, kind of prideful guy, but in the end, he's also a really kind-hearted guy who would do what's right and do what's best for the community.
He'd essentially
And
lay
that
down his
shows
life for those kids. He clearly cared like quite a lot about them, and I like that about
Mhm.
Go. I like Go.
Exactly. He cared a lot
Yeah.
about him, and we
Or
can really show
George Gore.
The dub.
I'm gonna ignore that. Anyways, we see the duel against Revolver, where I think is one of my favorite Reigns duels, and one of the
Second
most
favorite Reigns
underrated duels. Can somebody catch me if it's not?
I wouldn't say
If
it's
it is
underrated. I think a lot of people like that duel, but
Okay.
I think people like that duel more. I'll give you credit. I think they like it more because of what Revolver does and like the reveals of Boral Sword Dragon and a lot of stuff, and the Mirror Force moment of the
And Mirror Force.
sink
Yeah.
into despair with
God,
shade nobody you know who's.
the news force.
But I'll like to sorry to interrupt, but I actually really like that duel. That's my second favorite duel in all of Reigns. I think that is a really cool duel that was genuinely really entertaining from both sides. But I think he gets a lot of credit for one side, just Revolver's, not as much. From
I know,
Go's
and that's the
side.
under. I really like one of my favorite cards is Goki the Giant Ogre, and the anime and the game really showed me. And also, I do have a bias for Go because I really do like the deck Gokis, and I really played a lot with it. So that also alleviates my love for Go. And I think in that duel where he says, "Playmaker, I leave the rest to you," and Playmaker says, "Go, because of you, I know what's." Revolver's hiding and what his secret card is. And I love the dialogue they exchange. Even if Go and Playmaker didn't talk a lot in first season, their interaction, even if they were small, I think they were genuine and really nice to look at it. And I really liked the self-sacrifice he did and his duel against the Revolver. I think both sides were really fantastic and I really enjoyed it. And then season 2 comes along and it does the opposite of
All
that.
downhill from here.
But I will say, even if I didn't like season 2, the change of his character and prideful, I could understand it. In season, we're shown why he's back to his most prideful thing and his prideful thing. When he's talked about the media, all they talk about is Playmaker when it's an interview about Go Onizuka. Obviously, the public doesn't care about him. All his position as a king and all of that is just gone. And obviously, anyone would be very distraught. Like, you're just a nobody now. And Go Onizuka, to prove himself that he is a somebody, to prove that he exists, he wanted to directly face against Playmaker, and he took all the chances he could get to find Playmaker. So that's why he teamed with Soltech, even if it's not the right decision. He wanted to prove himself that he too can beat Playmaker. He's the best. He's still the strongest duelist. Obviously, losing to Soulburner was probably one of my least favorite parts, but the fact that when he goes and goes against and duels against Earth, when we see his state and all of that, we can see Go is just losing himself through his pride and just his jealousy and all of that. He's losing that humanity and all that love he had for the children. And honestly
Why
really
would they think of
like
that
that
children?
writing aspect. I don't like him as a person, but I love that character writing. I just want to. I just feel so pity and tragic for him. I feel like he sacrificed so much just to get his pride and his status as a citizen and as a person, as a king back. That it's just very something that I'm definitely like shocked and very nice to look. I mean, not very nice to look at, but it's a thing that I definitely
Yeah.
admire. I would say in a way that he
Yeah.
this much. He went through so much lengths just to get himself back to be who he was, and I think that's just very tragic. And it's just really sad that most people only see Go as like a really just either boring or just a dick, and you just never see
Yeah.
the side of what he took, what lengths he took to get there. And I feel that that's just very underrated, and a lot of people
I
hate
definitely,
I
yeah, I
honestly,
definitely enjoyed Go's descent into madness, his descent into depravity, if you will. I honestly thought that was one of the better writing aspects of Reigns. The problem with it is that we just Go's off-screen redemption where he becomes quote unquote normal again, or he finds himself, he finds what really matters again, is off-screen.
That's the
That was the
with, like,
problem. But I
Reigns and
really loved seeing him kind of descend into this madness where it became an obsession with him being playmaker, so much so that he's taking all these poor health choices. He's not eating correctly. He's the Reigns technology is clearly messing with his head and causing him serious distress and pain. I actually really enjoyed seeing that. He was a very tragic character, and I wish we just seen more of his development going back to becoming normal and seen more of his turmoils and seen more of his, what should I say, narration, his inner monologues, if you will. But I agree. I thought Go is a little underrated in Reigns.
to
Not a lot
jump
of
off
people
of
give him enough
Forte's
credit.
point, I honestly,
Yeah.
I agree. I like Go
Mhm.
a lot. I just think Go's problem is the problem with most Vrain's characters, where their character development is point A to point B, rather than a
Right.
gradual development. The problem with Go is that he falls victim to the same things as Aoi and even to an extent Revolver, where they lose a duel, they go off screen for a while, they come back as a different person, and that cycle repeats. I like Go's
Right.
development a lot more than Aoi's, probably not as much as Revolver's, but I like Go. I think he's a good. I think he's a decent character. I like the points that he's at. I just wish we had more of a gradual descent from point A to point B,
Exactly.
rather than
It
just
was too
disappear
abrupt.
off screen, come back, and then have his character entirely changed. And I think Go also struggles from just how season 2 at its last half really had no clue what it wanted to be. Go's character
Exactly.
was the big guy who killed Earth and then dueled Yusaku, and then what? He disappears. He gets beaten off screen by Bowman. He gets
Yeah,
beaten off
supposedly,
screen. Off
Right.
screen.
And they don't even tell us he gets beaten off screen. They just show us.
They just
like,
show.
that
Oh,
the
he has.
Earth
Yeah,
ignis.
he's got the Earth
Yeah,
ignis.
like,
Where'd you get
what?
that from? What?
Like,
That's
where did that even come from?
Oh, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
And those
That
are the
was the
things
most-
I hated about Go. Those are the things I
Yeah.
hated about Vrains. Is that so
Yeah.
much of it was just thought of on the fly, and characters like Go who have genuinely good descents. And I like Go. He's not my favorite character, but I do like Go enough. How you have genuinely the basis for a genuine cool descent into madness character arc, but it gets ruined by Vrains' stupid idea that character development
Exactly.
is a character gets beaten, they leave for half a season, they come back in a new outfit, and now they've developed or changed as people. And that cycle repeats over and over.
Never developed at all because they've never changed.
Well,
But
he,
I think
he had
I
different
will-
lines. He had a different
One
line
thing
on
I
his
will-
outfit.
One thing I will debate is that whole jealousy and that plot still was hinted in season 1. So I think
But it
overall,
shouldn't just be
Go was a
hinted.
lot-
It should be something that we should be seeing on screen. We shouldn't just see Go lose.
Oh, we saw it
to-
on screen for sure. He always had talked about everyone's talking about Playmaker and
We
that
didn't
and that.
see the development though from the end of season 1 to the beginning of season 2. We just see him
Fair
lose to
enough.
Revolver. He
we
goes into
did see it
Okay,
through flashbacks and what the media did. That's why I mentioned it.
and I would
Through
rather
Soul
see that, a
Reaver.
lot of that stuff
Yeah.
on screen rather than just be.
I mean,
called
fair
back to
enough,
for-
but
on
most of the
flashback.
time, like I said, it's an issue with Reigns with most of it.
Exactly.
But I think
Yeah,
Go did
I
a
think
lot
Go's
better.
one of the
would
better
always-
examples. I just think he falls victim to the problems
Right.
that all
Reigns would
Vrain's
always
characters
give us
fall.
like breadcrumbs or samples, but they would never really expound upon it. Was the problem? They'd give me like the appetizer, but skip out on the full course.
They'd be like, "Here's
Which-
your free sample." Oh, can I?
Yeah.
They give you a free sample. You go to the supermarket, you go to the grocer, you buy the sample, free sample. And it's like, "Ooh, free sample. This tastes really good. Can I buy more?"
Right.
No, we're out of stock.
No.
We're
I
out of
personally don't
stock.
hate Reigns, but it left a lot to be desired in many aspects,
Fuck
particularly
Reigns.
in Go's character. Yeah. So But
Yeah,
yeah, solid character.
that was my thing. It was a very good intro because you said it's underrated, not overhated. I have both.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, Go definitely fits both bills.
Go and like
I
a lot
think-
of characters like fit that whole character arc, and like characters like I and Revolver. I think Revolver probably does it the best, but Go and I and Aoi and Soulbone, they all fall to these same problems, and it's sad because I genuinely like the points that they start at, and I'm okay, like other than Aoi, I like the points that they end at. It's just in the middle. It's kind of just point A, point B,
Point
and it's
B,
like
right.
instead of the gradual development or the gradual descent. And that just makes it feel very. It gives me that feeling of disconnect, and I'm like, I would connect with you so much more if I got to see this gradual descent into madness and saw more of an elaboration on why you were brought to these conclusions. I understand that because you're telling me you were brought to these conclusions, but I want to see some of that stuff. In general,
Yeah,
I much
really,
prefer see not type of tell characters. I like my show not tell characters. I don't, and that's another thing that Vrains did is that instead of showing character development or character motivation, they just spoon fed it to you in random chunks of dialogue. And it's like, here, we've developed now. And I'm like, why didn't I get to see any of this stuff? Oh, because we have no clue what's going on in our studio right now because Studio Galp's fucked right now. Cool.
Cool.
And then we got Sevens.
And we got Sevens at a different studio. That's apparently the new episode of Sevens was genuinely really good and mind-blowing.
I've heard it was really great. But
Which Forte, I would watch it with you after this pod.
Bro,
I may catch up on Sevens on my own time.
Yuto's trying to make a date, bro. Yuto's trying to make a date. He's like, hey, baby, you want to watch?
We don't do anything after a podcast.
Hey,
whoa,
don't put my words in my mouth.
Yuto's trying to be like, hey, baby, you got a nice lass.
What do you mean?
I'm not talking about.
What do you mean after
It's
the
hard being
podcast?
as
We
popular
go into
as I am.
shutdown after every episode until the
After
next
the
one.
podcast, we just don't talk to each other. We just leave and we don't talk to each other anymore. We hate each other.
No. We're like how kids used to think their teachers knew
Sam
at the
paid
school.
us to be here, so just
Yes, I paid you with gotcha.
Wait, you guys are getting paid?
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
shit! Why'd you tell Forte? He was the one that was offering.
He pulled me for Riruka, so I'm like, all right, I'll be here.
Dude, I get that
Bro,
Pokemon Masters money. 'Cause if
Yuto's
you
the one
drop-
that
I'll have
begged to be
him.
here, bro. I was before
Please,
Yuto joined.
Vincent, one for me.
When Yuto was late for the podcast, I was like, boys, so we're voting Yuto off the podcast, right? Right, guys? Anyone say aye? And then we all voted aye. And then that's democracy. So Yuto's getting cut off the podcast. Very cool. He doesn't want to be here. Very cool. Very cool.
Bro, you hate to see it, Yuto. I didn't know you felt that way. But I think you brought up a good character, and if there's nothing else to say about Mr. Go, I'll give it over to Sam to do his second character.
The second character on my list, who do I want to choose as my second character? I have my list here, so I need to pick.
Yeah.
I need to pick well.
Yeah.
The pick for, and I'm also looking for my list because I lost it on my notepad here. The next character on my list is probably one that I think it's one of the easy characters on my list that you could make an argument for. I don't think that character is underrated, but in my experience, when I see a lot of people talk about this series, they don't ever really bring up this character as one of the strong points. I'm talking about the Mad Chad from Jojo Part 2. Wamu! Bro! I love Wamu! Wamu is one of my favorite character archetypes. Noble Chads. I love noble Chads who are able to give their opponent... They may be these big, buff, burly men who want to fight and do all this stuff, but they can give the respect to their opponent, and even in death, respect them on the way out. I know Michael's watching part 2, so I can't say much, but we all know the scene with Caesar.
Wait. I'll mute myself. Tell me when you're done and I'll come back.
Okay, someone message him when he's back.
Okay,
And
I'll
same-
drop a message for you, Michael.
Yuto also hasn't seen part 2, so I don't want to spoil him on this as well.
Yeah, I know what scene you... Yeah,
He's
go ahead.
gonna
Sorry,
deafen
they're both-
too.
yeah,
Let's go.
Yeah.
So I can talk
Let's
about
go.
this. Wamu in his battle with Caesar, and then his battle with Joseph. Bro, the
Yes.
scene where Wamu does his hurricane move against Caesar's bubble blaster, and it's like,
Blaster,
oh
yes.
shit. And then he beats Caesar, and Caesar's about to go, I'll beat you for Joseph, my brother. And then Wamu is like, it's time to stop. You have
Yeah.
lost. And then Caesar's like, no. And then he's trying to fight back, and Wamu is just going, no. You have lost. And then it's like, bro! And then the scene where Caesar gives everything in his power, and he's like, I will offer my hamon to you, Jojo! And then it's like, ah! And then he grabs the lip ring off of Wamu's lip, and it's like, oh my god. And Wamu could easily just take that lip ring and be like, fuck it. But he's like, no, You were a noble fighter. I will respect your death by having your last efforts not be taken in vain. And then he walks off with that Omega Chad move, and then the thing from the ceiling comes and crushes Caesar, and then you have the scene with Joseph going, Caesar! And it's like, and then you have Wamu in his battle with Joseph, and then they're fighting in the Colosseum,
the chariot race.
The chariot race.
I love that fight. I love that fight. Yeah.
And then he's like, do not disrespect our battle, Jojo! And then, they cut off the head, and he's burning, and then Joseph, being the ultimate Chad, is like, you did not let Caesar's sacrifice be in vain, so I will respect you as an almighty, legendary, proud warrior. And then he cut his wrist open and then poured the blood to cool down the searing pain on Wamu's neck. And it's like, I love you so much.
And I really love that scene too, because the deal with Joseph in part 2 is he was never, especially in the beginning, he's already introduced as being kind of a tricky character. He doesn't really fight with honor. You know how he pulls out the Tommy gun and all that kind of stuff. So to see Wamu, he fights kind of dirty. He does whatever it takes to win. He's known for running away, kind of being cowardly or more strategic, if you want to call it. So the fact that he was able to look at the end of the fight with Caesar and Wamu and see that Wamu was a true warrior and tone himself to that honor by respecting his death was a huge moment. So even a character like Wamu having this kind of effect on our main protagonist being Joseph, I thought was really great. And Wamu just as a character was great. I love characters, like you said, that are very strong, but they have this honor about them. They are aware of their power,
but not to the point where it's
prideful,
like, but not to the point where it's like, but like I like honor, but not to the point where it like they essentially trade common sense for honor. That's not what Wamu's doing. He's just a noble Chad who respects the sacrifice, and he's
just noble, and is very aware of his power, but he still will do what it takes to win. He doesn't pull punches. He's just very honorable and not conceited about his power, but he knows how strong he is.
I love Wamu
and he knows how strong his opponent is, and when his opponent is done fighting, he knows, like, you have lost. I don't need to do anything else.
My masters! Da-da-da-da-da, bro.
But I love Wamu. I was glad you put him on this list. It was a character I didn't think to add, but when
no one talks about Wamu. When we talk about JoJo antagonists, you hear Dio, Kira, Fanny Valentine, Poochie. You never. Sometimes you hear about cars, but when you talk about part 2, you hear stuff about Joseph and the memes and Caesar.
Yeah.
Never do
we talk about Caesar's death, but never Wamu and Caesar's fight.
I love Wamu.
Or Wamu. Yeah.
My second favorite character in all of JoJo, right after Kira Yoshikage. I love Wamu. He's either my second or third, between him and Bruno. I love him and Bruno. Both of them are...
Bruno. I love Bruno, obviously.
I love Bruno in pieces, but I love Wamu so much. Underrated noble Chad, who had one of the greatest fights in all of anime.
Yeah, 2 of the greatest fights. I love both his fights.
I love both his fights.
2.
I love both his fights.
They're amazing.
I love everything about Wamu. He is just a Chad. He is so noble. He's so fun. Oh, he's just so great.
My favorite Pillarman.
I think it's time to let these boys...
I'll at them real quick.
We're such a ghetto podcast, man. We're such a ghetto podcast. Jesus Christ.
Yeah. We're hey, I mean, how else can we do? I think it's better that we could just go all out without worrying about them. Yeah, I think that worked out nice.
I am gonna talk about a Naruto character, but I don't know. I'll probably do it without spoilers first. But yeah.
I think you can talk about him without spoilers. I think that's possible. I don't know if Michael saw me add him, but you can go ahead, Yuto. I think you can go ahead with your character if you would like.
Is it me or is it Michael?
It doesn't matter. Whoever wants to go next.
Michael,
okay.
Because
we can go with Michael. I saw he was kind of still going.
Oh no, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, next one.
Good, bro.
Who's the next one on Michael's list?
Well, this one, Sam, you can actually talk about it a little bit with me. Kamui Lee, D. Greyman.
Who?
Kamui Lee, D. Greyman.
Yeah, Kamui's cool. Kamui.
Fuck yeah.
Kamui's cool. Kamui's cool. He's one of the funny guys in the show.
I think the underrated part of this comes a lot from the fact that D. Greyman unfortunately has Hunter x Hunter syndrome.
Yeah.
And so its chapters are infrequent, and the last time Kamui was in the manga, I think it was years ago. Shit. Because
I like
I'm personally almost caught up to where the manga is, and I have not really like seen him like he was a while back, which in our time was years ago.
Yikes! I like Kamui. He's actually pretty fun.
I love Kamui.
I love Lena
and
Lee more.
I'm gonna be talking about little bit of future spoilers about why I really like Kamui.
Bro.
So
I like
So-
Kamui. Kamui's cool. Go
to
ahead.
start off, to start off, Kamui Lee, massive siscon. No,
Well,
but
he has every reason to because
he-
Lena Lee is perfect.
he's honestly, it's played up for gags and jokes a lot about how much he loves his sister. But once you learn a bit more about how kind of utterly fucked the order is and what he had to do, the amount of like blood, sweat, and tears and hours he had to get into in order to climb high enough in the ranks, not just to like actually be in charge of a branch, but be able to be close to the only family he has left is pretty commendable. And it's not just Lena Lee who he cares for, even if like that's where the brunt of his affection goes. Towards the end of the Noah's Ark, that arc.
Yep.
It's kind of weird to say it. They're on the ark, and it's an entire arc.
Yep.
We hear like Kamui's like words of encouragement towards Alan about like what he told him before they entered about how well once you get back we'll throw a massive party, and there'll be plenty of food to eat. All the adults will be drinking. Kondo will probably be really grumpy. Lavi will fall asleep and we'll throw a blanket over him. And it just kind of how he speaks and how he kind of treats everyone in the order as a family, and how literally Alan, his life sucks. His life isn't that great. How this is the only real familial connection he has right now. Kamui's just he's overall just a very genuine guy, and if Diggeron didn't suffer from Hunter syndrome, I would kind of like I would sit here loving for the times where this fucking goofy, well-meaning guy would be around a lot more.
I like him for what I've seen of D. Gray Man. He's
Yeah, we've stopped watching it like for a little bit of the time being, but like I know you really enjoy Kamui.
I do. He's not my favorite. I like a few characters more, but I do like.
I know
him.
you like Lena Lee and Rode and Ellen.
Lena Lee's perfect. Rode is best girl. She's a smug piece of shit, and she entertains me greatly.
Rode is very very good.
Rode's great. She's a smug piece of shit.
If you even make an episode about smug shits in anime.
Yes, Rode, yay!
Rode Camelot.
I love Rode. She's smug and voiced by Jeremy Lee, who voices.
Jeremy Lee does do a lot of good work.
Like Makoto in Persona 5. Sim.
That's what's up. That's what's up. Now I know that. I know about that.
And
Makoto.
Komaru Naegi and Danganronpa.
Yes, I was about to say Komaru.
Ayo, Komaru, ayo.
Omaru. That's what I call it still.
Komaru Naegi. But I think we're done with that, Michael. I think we're done
but
with
no,
Michael's.
like I was like like I said before, we're really gonna talk about Kamui less because I'm pretty sure he's pretty loved in like the fan base of D. Gray Man.
Yeah.
But no, of D. Gray Man. But just because it's kind of a very niche thing that like I don't really see a lot of people like online talking about, I thought it was worth like bringing attention to this guy.
Fair enough. So Yuto, take us away with your next one.
Yeah, what you got
Shouldn't
for us,
Forte
bro?
go first? Because I was the one doing last. I assume we're going on the same order.
Okay then. Forte,
We
take it
can.
away.
I can go ahead and go. Let's see. Who do I want to do next on my list? I think I'm gonna do Uzu Sanagayama from Kill la Kill.
Hey, Sanagayama's cool. I like Sanagayama. He's
Yeah,
one of the better
I like
characters.
his. I really liked his character growth and arc quite a bit in Kill la Kill, and I do feel like he's pretty underrated because you think mostly about the main characters in Kill la Kill. You don't really think about many of the which I say student council. I'll say or the
I like
three-star
Hiro
Goku
Gamagori.
users. Yeah, I like Gamagori quite a bit, and I feel like Sanagayama often gets kind of not talked about as much for obvious reasons. He's not
I feel
quite as
bad that we're talking
important
about
to the
Kill la
plot,
Kill or
but-
Crimson isn't here.
I know. Yeah, I thought Crimson would have loved to have seen that. I put him on my list because I talk about him quite a bit. As being character I like in Kill la Kill. But I really enjoyed his character arc and his character growth, the progression of his Goku uniform, and I love that he was very confident in his eyes. Right, that was his main sense, and that's how he felt he was going to beat Ryoko Matoi. Right, he was going to use his eyes, and he was going to beat her using his style of fighting. And I like that he was able to realize that he took a huge L because he relied too much on his eyes. And going to the extreme, as Kill la Kill often likes to do, he sews his eyes shut and then covers them with a bandana because he felt like he needed to go through that growth and that development and that training arc, if you will, of not being able to see so that he can increase his other senses, which, other than being really over the top, I thought was
God loves
I
metal.
thought it was, yeah, pretty much. But I thought it was just really cool that he would go that far just to be able to improve himself to better serve Satsuki, but also to be able to beat Ryoko Matoi. And his character arc keeps growing as his Goku uniforms change throughout the story of Kill la Kill. I think he had the most changes um, in his Goku uniform than any other character in the show. I think I'm correct in that. And one of the things I really loved is not only that he was trying to better himself as a fighter, but also his devotion to the student council and Satsuki. Throughout Kill la Kill, you see everyone's backstory and their relation with Satsuki and how he sees her and now Ryuko as the two people that he was unable to defeat. And while he wants to serve Satsuki, he also wants, as I said probably 3 times now, he wants to really improve himself as a fighter to be on that level. He respects these two fighters to this great a deal that he wants to do everything he can to improve himself. And one of the most powerful scenes in Kill la Kill for me was when Uzu obviously takes the L to Ragyo and Nui before the final couple of episodes of Kill la Kill, and he takes a slice at Ragyo after those two losses, after joining the resistance, if you will. And she has a line that says something along the lines of, "A blind man's sword could never reach me." And right after she says that, you see three or four strands of her hair fall off, and you see the mask come off of Uzu, and his eyes are open, and he does actually strike her. Now, albeit he doesn't do serious damage, but he is able to actually land a blow on her. Before, he was unable to actually land a blow on Nui, who is definitely weaker than Ragyo, and now he's actually against Big Boss Lady at full power, actually landing a blow. He's reached the point where he trusts his senses, he trusts his capability as a fighter, as a member of the student council, and his ability to not only serve Satsuki, but also to fight alongside her, as well as Ryuko Matoi on an equal level. And his journey was one I just thought was really great. I thought his Goku uniform was super badass. I liked his style of fighting. And that line, even years later, has just really stuck with me. Her saying that a blind man's sword can never reach her, and you just see those threads of hair slice. You see the visible confusion in her face, and the mask comes off. And he says something along the lines of, "I'm not blind anymore." He no longer relies on just one sense. He's improved all his senses, and he's become an overall better fighter and a great ally. And so I liked his journey. I think he's a character that's often overlooked for more popular characters in Kill la Kill, which makes sense. I'm not saying he's my favorite character in Kill la Kill, but I just really loved his character arc, and he's probably like a top 3 character for me out of that series. And he just brought a different kind of pizzazz and character growth that was different than some of the other characters that I enjoyed seeing. So yeah, that's my number 2.
So it's up to you two now.
Yep, it's all you, Yuto.
All right. I feel like I can't contribute in these discussions because I haven't watched Kill la Kill.
We should watch Kill la Kill. I think you may.
It's
like
great.
Kill la Kill.
It's really.
I
good.
probably should finish Gurren Lagann first.
You should finish.
I always respect Kill la Kill for having fan service with a point. Fan service that's really tied into the story, albeit it's over the top, but it actually makes sense.
I like
I thought it was great.
Cool.
Yeah, I thought it was really well done. Actually.
I think Kill la Kill's cool. I like Satsuki a lot. Yeah. She's my favorite character. And then Iragamagori. Yeah. Those are the 2 characters that I really, really like in that show. But I do like
Satsuki's my number 1 in that show.
I thought your favorite was Sanagayama. Pog. I love Satsuki.
Oh, no, he's not. He's not my favorite character. I just think he's an underrated character. I said he'd be in my top 3.
Satsuki's my favorite by far. I think
Satsuki's my number 1.
Amazing antagonist.
I was talking to Sora. It's his favorite too. So I just love Satsuki. I'll never forget a certain scene with her, and just loved it. So yeah.
So up to you now, Yuta. Go ahead.
It's all you, Yuta.
All right. Well, let's do. I really want to talk about Ukitaka, the sixth Jinchuriki of Naruto.
Yes,
And
sir.
it's not a really big deal, but he's obviously a Jinchuriki, and
Okay,
he's
I'm sorry to have to ask, but who?
He's
Have you
from a
watched
filler
Naruto?
arc in Shippuden.
I have,
Yeah.
but I just don't- I honestly, I'm a little bad. I don't remember a lot of the Jinchuriki.
The one that stands out is Utakata, and he received his own arc. However, it is filler. He is a canon character, and he does show up in Naruto in the final battle. But he is definitely a canon character. But they made a whole arc about it, gave his more personality and more in depth. In the manga, we only were hinted about what his personality
This man
is.
looks like end of series Sasuke a little bit.
I would say
Because
he's a
of the
lot better
bang.
than Sasuke. I mean, Forte can vouch me on this.
No, but he has the
Oh.
hair that covers like the one eye and everything.
I really loved his story arc. It's my favorite filler in Shippuden. I think
That
so.
is
Yeah,
the same with me.
it's-
I think
yeah.
it is the one time where I actually really enjoyed the filler. Obviously, the villain is not really good, like most fillers are, but I
Mhm.
think this canon character, they did really well with him. They definitely gave him more personality. They showed like why he's so distrusting and why he's on the run out of this village. Obviously, he killed his master who was trying to take the six tails away from him and extract him, and he's on the run for his survival. Obviously, um, his personality is shown to be distrusting but very keen, very smart against enemies, obviously because he's always alone, and he always has this laid back personality, kind of very similar to Shikamaru, but but you can see that when he's serious, he's very calm and very stoic, but you can see that he cares about a lot of people, cares about like people who get hurt in between, and actually has a very cool, unique style of jutsu, which he uses bubbles, which is very odd, but the way
Yeah,
he
it's
uses
really
bubbles
cool,
and
though.
uses
he's
it is very,
Wamu.
really interesting.
He's Wamu from Jojo, bro.
Yeah, dude. Freaking Caesar.
I just feel that I really wish most of the Jinchuriki were explored, but
I
at
meant
the very
Caesar
least,
from Jojo, not Wamu. I feel dumb. I meant Caesar.
Yeah, I correct. I said
Jinchuriki was
Caesar.
very
Right.
very shown to be prominent. He worked with Naruto, obviously the filler villain, but he's shown to be had a strong sense of honor and payback depths, and also he was definitely if you tried, he would acknowledge and he would actually be yielding to work together. In and the fact that his actual genuine feelings and seeing him open up later on to obviously the girl and Naruto shows like a lot of actual good character development for this arc. He's just a man who lost everything, and obviously like Jinchurikis, like Naruto, he was ostracized and outcast. You can see that he has a lot of humanity, but he closed himself off because he had to do it to survive and to be
Right.
careful. He was always on the run of the Ambu, who were basically the black ops of the village, trying to hunt him down and track him down. And I always love that. And the biggest issue of the letdown is, I mean, like all Jinchuriki, if you can tell, obviously, yeah, but I
Yeah,
just
he's not
really,
well
If you're not
explored.
Naruto, you don't matter. Or B.
yeah, and he
Yeah,
just did
pretty
get
much.
cucked. He did get cucked by a prominent villain, who I'm not going to say who it is. However, the anime showed him a fight against that prominent villain, and he fought very, very well. And I
Yeah,
really liked how much respect they gave him to this supposedly canon character that wasn't in the main story, but they made a whole central story about him and gave him so much respect that I have nothing but admiration for the anime team for this, because I really enjoyed this character.
One of my favorite scenes from that filler arc, and it's not a big spoiler anyway, because you mentioned that he does get cucked by a prominent villain who I won't name. But one of my favorite scenes is the whole time the girl is asking him to be a sensei. And as you said, he's kind of closed himself off because his experience with his sensei was not great, because the sensei was trying to extract the tail beast from him and he thought it was an attack on his life. And unfortunately, he was a little misguided. But my favorite scene is he finally accepts that, okay, I'll be your sensei. I want to teach you about this ninjutsu and all that good stuff. I just need to go here real fast and ask permission. I want to make amends with the village, basically, because he's basically a rogue ninja at this point. He wants to make amends with the village, and of course, that's when the certain scene happens. And he tells her from a distance. It's the most scene with the most duality I've ever seen in like a Naruto filler arc. He's at the end blowing bubbles because his student really loved to see his bubbles. She thought it was really beautiful, and that's why she wanted to learn about the ninjutsu. And he tells her, "I want you to live." And she's sitting in a field waiting for him to return because she thinks she's finally going to go on this journey with her sensei. And she also, there was some kind of like romantic tension almost there as well. And he tells her from a distance, "You have to live." And she sees the bubbles surrounding her, and she's just filled with bliss because she thinks that he's coming back and they're about to start his journey. It's one of the saddest scenes actually in Naruto for me. I still remember it to this day from that filler arc, because she thinks that he's on his way back, but in reality he's not coming back. It was just super sad, and the last thing she sees is the bubbles around her. And even though he is, not doing so hot, he's still only thinking about her, his student. He's thinking about her future and where she will go. And I wish we, like Yuta said, I wish we got more exploration into these characters, but since it was just a filler arc, we didn't get that, which was unfortunate. But I still really like that scene, and I like that character. Definitely my favorite.
I just feel like this could be technically canon, and the placement of it is actually very natural. So I really do like this filler arc, and
it's
really
huge
wish
foreshadowing. It's huge foreshadowing for the next major fight in Shippuden. So.
It's a huge more foreshadowing. It's a very huge foreshadowing to his character and what his impact is. I just really like it. And one thing I will admit is some of the Naruto fillers, they do really well on some characters that were just mentioned in Naruto, but they build up on them. And this is obviously more than unlikely. This is like one of the good examples of his filler arc, but I would say it's just he's one of my favorite characters, and it turned out to be kind of like a filler character, which is kind of amazing.
And another thing I like about his character is at this point, characters like Gaara and Naruto have been accepted by their villages. So at this point, we have forgotten what it was like to be a Jinchuriki in these villages, like being lonely, being sad, not having friends, not having those connections. And then we get this character here, which in a filler, of course, and we are reminded of what it was like being a Jinchuriki, how Naruto has come so far to being accepted by his village, as well as Gaara. And also, after the next big fight, Naruto is going to be seen as the hero of the Leaf from that point on. So this is just a reminder about how far Naruto has come as a character and how far he has developed in the village, and people have come to accept him. He's made those connections, and how important that really is for a Jinchuriki, because they're just super lonely. But yeah, great character.
I love his character, and I love his design. I actually love his powers. His powers are very unique. He's the only one who can utilize the bubble jutsu, which is just really unique, how they make bubbles deadly.
Okay.
But yeah.
So that was number 2 for Yuto. So number 3, we're moving on to number 3. This podcast is getting pretty long, so I'm going to try and keep these next ones a bit quicker than we did before.
Yep. I can skip one of mine and then have 2 more that I actually give a fuck about.
Okay.
Should we reduce to 4 characters instead of 5? We should do 4.
We can do 4. Yeah, I can do 4.
Yeah,
cool.
Let's do 4.
I can do 4.
I'll cut off
that works.
So I'm gonna quickly touch on a character. There are 2 other characters that I kind of wanted to touch on, but I'm not sure if they're overrated, so I'll leave them off this one and put them on another time. We may do a sequel to this one. Honestly, we've talked a lot about this, so a sequel to the underrated anime characters would be a cool one. But I'm
then in that case, should we go like one more big one all around, and then like leave some other ones for
one small one big one each. That makes it 4, and then we can leave the other ones for another time, because we clearly have a lot to talk about when it comes to this. We're reaching almost 2 hours. So I'm going to talk about the character who inspired me to make this, Heinkel from Full Metal Alchemist. I love Heinkel. I could talk about Heinkel. Well, I can't talk about Heinkel that much, but I really, really like Heinkel. I really like Heinkel. Heinkel's a really cool and underrated character. If you don't remember him, he's the Lion Chimera. A lot of people don't remember him. I know I've brought him up enough to you guys, and I'm glad you guys like him, which is a pog.
Yeah.
But I really like Heinkel. One of my favorite scenes.
Of the gods.
One of my favorite scenes in all of Full Metal Alchemist, especially Brotherhood, is the scene where Kimberly and Pride are double teaming against Al. And Al is about to lose. He's about to have everything essentially effed up with him. And he's questioning, am I going to win this? Am I going to win this? And then you have Heinkel give him the amazing speech about the Philosopher's Stone and about letting the people in that stone fight and prove themselves to protect the ones that they love. I love that scene to death. That scene is so powerful. The music, the fade into having the ending, the last ending of Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood play when Alphonse marches out of the dust cloud with the Philosopher's Stone in hand against Kimberly and Pride, and Kimberly's like, very well done, Alphonse Elric. And I love that scene so much. It's one of my favorite scenes in all of anime, all of Full Metal Alchemist. I just really like Heinkel. One of my favorite mini arcs is always the arc after Kimberly separates Al from Ed, and Al and Winry and all of them go to one side of Amestris, and Ed stays with the two chimeras in the other. It was cool seeing how Ed and Al, these characters who were always so much together, seeing them actually split up and forced to make their own decisions without the other one at their back. And I really liked how Heinkel and Darius, the monkey gorilla chimera, were able to assist Ed and be that emotional support for him, even if obviously things happen. The scene where like Ed tries to kill them and then he gets impaled by the giant metal spike, and about how he uses his life energy to protect it, and then Heinkel and Darius like bring him off and like we owe you saved our lives, and then they bring him off to the hospital, and then you start that cool mini arc. I just love Heinkel, such an overlooked character. That scene in Brotherhood gets no attention. I love that scene. I love that character to pieces. I don't think there's anything more else to say. Just a really cool character who has a really iconic scene under his belt.
Yeah, I remember we watched that scene. It's a great scene. I definitely agree with that. It's amazing.
So, Michael, come on to us and stop breathing in your mic like a homo.
Okay, well, this is my short one. I'm not sure if there's a lot of like, if he's actually underrated, but like, I was legit kind of never ran into many people who talk about the show. Granted, I started watching it way after it came out.
Who are you going to be talking about, Michael?
Is Homura Karawai from Recovery of an MMO Junkie.
No clue who that is. You go off.
Oh, yes, I will go on. Ultimate Wingman.
Have you seen that one, Forto?
No, I was saying you can go ahead. I have no idea about that one.
Go ahead.
In short, Ultimate Wingman.
Ah, so he's Elemental Hero Flame Wingman.
Yes.
Ooh.
He just overall a massive fucking alpha wingman for like Sakurai and like Mama.
Go ahead.
What's a hard some kind?
Are you sure it's a guy? All I'm searching up is a girl.
Koiwai.
Homura Akemi, right?
Homura Koiwai.
Koiwai?
Yeah.
Continue, Michael.
No, but how he helps at like Sakurai and their relationship that the entirety of the show, even if it is short, and even if the manga is pretty much gone at this point because the mangaka, unfortunately, she ran into like health issues.
Oh.
How he interacts in like the short amount of time that like we kind of get to have him there is just like overall he's fun. He's also kind of a nice sort of different balance to like how everyone else acts. He sort of has everything else in his life sort of set up in like the real life in real life. Everyone else is kind of touch and go within like the game. No, just thought I heard something.
He's reminding me of the Chad from Rent-A-Girlfriend, bro. The guy that helped out bitch ass Kazuya. Nah, he was Chad.
No, I mean, little bit. He's kinda, yeah.
I remember when we were watching Red Girlfriend and screaming at Kazuya, we saw the Chad, and we're like, yo, the Chad! I forgot his name, though, I feel bad. But he was a Chad, bro.
He was voiced by
Yeah,
Yeah,
I told Forte that
childhood
there was
friend.
only one chapter I liked from Rent a Girlfriend, and it was that scene.
That was
Yeah,
literally-
That was a
that
great
guy's
scene.
actually a
That
goat.
guy was a Chad.
Yeah.
He was a
He
goat.
was
Saved
also
his stupid
voiced by
friend.
Ian St. Clair in the dub, which is kind of a fun time all around.
Mr.
That was the
Chairman!
only chapter I liked in Rent a
Mr.
Girlfriend.
Chairman!
Rent a Girlfriend peaked at like episode
Yeah,
4.
but yeah,
I guess.
Koi Wai overall, like, he ultimate wingman in that show, and like, if for any reason the manga ever got to return, I'd enjoy seeing him again.
Fair enough. So, Forte, go ahead.
All right. So I'm going to go with my next character on the list. I'll probably end with my favorite character on this list, but I'll go ahead
Same.
and go with Aragaki from Megalobox.
Hey,
So
not seen that show.
So Aragaki is a definitely a very underrated character, because when you think of the characters in Megalobox, you think mostly of Joe, Nanbu, and I forgot the rival in Megalobox. Yuri. Yes, thank you. I was going to say Uzu, and I was like, that doesn't sound right. But Yuri. Yeah.
Yuri.
Okay, Yuri.
Yeah.
He was actually a pretty cool character, but most people don't really think about Aragaki because he had a pretty short arc that was just about him. It was important for the overall story in developing Nanbu and Joe's relationship, but his arc was just kind of short in there. But it was one of my favorite arcs in anime of that year. While Megalobox was a pretty good, decent show, I just thought that arc was phenomenal. So this arc really covered Aragaki's character and him returning from war. He'd gone off, he was originally Nambu's student, and for some context, Nambu is now teaching Joe how to box and all that. Nambu originally had a gym before it closed down, and he took Joe 3 years later. But before then, Nambu's first student was Aragaki. He was a great boxer, and Nambu was training them. They had a good relationship. But it was during that time that he was actually drafted to fight in a war in that universe, which I think was kind of based off the Middle Eastern conflicts we have today. I think that was their motivation there. And during this war, for long story short, his legs are destroyed by a grenade. A grenade explodes and he loses his legs. He comes back 3 years after that to find that Nambu's gym has closed, and he also comes back to find that all his connections are gone. Everything that he's ever known has changed. So to further cope with the fact that he has PTSD, and for those of you who don't know, that's post-traumatic stress syndrome, which is mostly associated with
Post-traumatic stress disorder.
Yeah, post-traumatic stress disorder. I said PTSD. I don't know why I still said syndrome.
PTSS.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm on the fly here.
Fair
But PTSD. He comes back from, which is a disorder that often affects people that go off to fight in war, soldiers and veterans, but it can also affect anyone that experiences any sort of trauma or emotional conflict, or emotional trauma, I should say. And the cool thing about that was I thought this character arc in these episodes handled PTSD the best I've seen in anime ever. It showed how hard it is to go off to war and to come back and find that you don't have those connections and everything has changed. But going back to his character, he looks and he sees Nanbu with his new student being Joe, and he immediately feels that Nanbu has left him and moved on to a new student, that he has come back, and the one person he was expecting to see, his coach and his old-time friend, had already moved on and forgotten him. He had attempted suicide many times before, but he eventually goes to the Veterans Association in Megalobox, and they help him get prosthetic legs, basically, so that he can become a boxer for his association. So he has this duality going on where he wants to defeat Joe in the Megalobox tournament. I forget the name, but he wants to defeat Joe in that tournament. But he also wants to raise the money to pay back the Veterans Association that had funded his rehabilitation, that had given him any ounce of his life back. And you get to see this duality because he finds out that Nambu at the time had also gone into disarray. His gym had failed, and he was suffering with these conflicts as well. He learns that even though he was the one who went off to war and had PTSD, that his actions of going to war had affect others, and that other people were fighting their own demons of inadequacy and failure. And long story short, he learns to he rekindles his relationship with Nambu and with Joe, and they they live quote unquote happily ever after, if you will. But what I really liked about that is that these episodes explored his character and his PTSD, the greatest I've ever seen, and he gets to realize that when he went off to war, time kept moving. Time never stopped, and things kept changing, and he had to acclimate to those changes, and he had to make the best of the life that he was given after, and he had to try to find a way to move forward. Really great character. I loved how they introduced him to the story, and through this character, it built up Nambu's character, his failures, and how he wanted to rectify those failures with Joe. I love when fighting shows, they always have that trope of this was my first student, and the first student always hates the second student, that kind of trope and that rivalry. But I never seen it implemented in this way, especially dealing with war and PTSD. And I really enjoyed this character, and I really enjoyed the way Megalobox portrayed that arc. So
I definitely agree. Aragaki was very good.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
You got anything else to
Are
say?
we-
Or moving on to the next
Oh
one?
no, I'm done. I'm ready for the next one.
So Yuto.
Is it Yuto again?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, there is 2 characters I have left, and I will probably do. I know what Forte's ending on, so
Yeah.
So you know what? I will save that character. I'll go with Amon Garam, other known as Adrian Gecko in Yu-Gi-Oh! GX.
Adrian, let's go. The man who was like, fuck card games, beefy wrestling time, bitch.
Amon is a character that is definitely
Over.
also very one-dimensionally hated and just not really looked at as just there. I think I really like Amon's, where if you remember Odeon or Reshade from Yu-Gi-Oh! DM, what if it was that, but you would take that darker path instead of saying, I'll live for this brother, I'll be my brother's simp. And I really like Amon, that they went the other direction with his character. Amon is a character, an orphan who was obviously adopted by a wealthy name called the Garam family, and he was definitely treated as their own son, treated very well, loved by his adopted parents, until his adopted parents got a son, a born son. The mother had a son, and obviously now Amon was pretty much the backseat of the love that the adopted parents gave him, and it was all to his younger brother. And Amon had so much grudges and so much pain, and he felt like replaced. So one day he was about to kill his brother in sleep, but his younger brother said, I'm sorry for all the pain you have to go through because of me, and because of that, Amon tried to live for his brother and the best for his Garam family. He did dirty tactics.
Wait, okay. I'm not too mean because I remember that scene, but only like in the dub, unfortunately. I don't remember that. I don't remember it in the sub so well. But like, wasn't the younger brother a baby, and he walked in the room, and then like as he stared at the baby, he just kind of changed his mind.
I think it was the baby. I might be getting mixed up with
his younger brother was a
But
baby. He couldn't say shit.
even then, I think he was playing tennis with his younger brother, and because of that, or actually, I might be getting.
It was baby in the crypt because I remember the pillow. I remember the pillow. I don't remember the baby saying shit.
I don't remember.
All
any
right.
of this
Anyways,
stuff.
it doesn't matter. Honestly, it doesn't matter. That's the only little part about him. I like that Amon showed off he had humanity, he had self-sacrifice, and all of that.
And then he became a
like
simp for
that
Echo.
aspect.
And Echo, I just want to say, Echo ugly, bro. That bitch ugly, bro.
Hey, man, her hair
She
looked
never
a mountain
became
peak.
a simp for Echo. Echo loved him, but he never showed that affection until now. But
He
I'm
became a
getting
simp
to
for
that part.
Exodia.
Yes, but we'll get to that.
Exodia.
My favorite part with Amon is he was always he was always that character that was with Judai's crew, but with a hidden ulterior motive. And I really liked his debate with Yubel. I really liked where Yubel corrupted his and pretty much brought out his own ambitions, his own yearnings. And I really liked that he tried to live with his ambitions. All that ambitions he clouded up, and all that self-sacrifice mindset he got was pretty much shattered by his ambitions, and he fell to that ambitions. And we get to really see that in season 3, where he would sacrifice the girl he loves in a ritual pretty much kill her to get a pretty much Exodia, which
You
is
get a
obviously
trading
huge.
card.
Hell yeah,
Did you get a
Exodia!
trading
But the
card?
fact, but the fact that he would go
He's got
this
his
far
priorities
to
straight.
these kind of lengths,
Oh yeah, I love Amon.
this kind of lengths, I was very amazed how they did it.
Amon's a great
And
character.
and then obviously Echo should have been more developed than we've seen. I do like she was a bit hinted, but she could have been a lot more used. But I do like how Echo was used for Amon's like conquest for power. And even if he was the minor villain, I think the minor villain was really well done with Amon.
Yep.
And I love that he almost got close in defeating Yubel. I loved his final duel with Yubel. Even if he fails, he almost got to win. He was always smug. He always got.
That scene,
He was
as I've
always
said,
that sad.
the scene I'll always remember of Amon is when Yubel gets back from beating up Kaiser, and then this like you have the shadow of the entire room, and then he's just chilling on the chair, and he's like, "Sup,
On the
bitch?
chair.
This is
Yeah.
my
And he hits her
kingdom
with
now.
like
Welcome
and he hits
to
her with
my
like his
soul society.
Exodia power.
This is
almost.
my throne, bitch." And it's like,
Yeah.
hey yo, that gave me some Eisen vibes when he's like, "Welcome to my soul society." It's like, hey
Yeah.
yo.
But I will say one thing I do also like is when Yubel tried to use the whole darkness to corrupt Amon's mind and waver his minds. Amon already cleared up all his doubts. He knows that he can't retake all the lives he took. He knows that his hands can't be dirtied. Yet he will go with his ambitions and he will create a world that pretty much, obviously, very unrealistic, but is a world. Create a world with the power of the dimensions. To see like there's no poverty, no war, there's no people like me who are abandoned by their own families and etc. I'll create a world, even if it's for my own desires. And he had no doubts, even if he clearly knows that he did all the wrong things and he had a lot of sins and burdens, but yet
I like Amon.
he went on with his ambitions and his idea. Obviously, he lost with Yubel, and I do like that he was permanently killed off with Echo. I feel like I definitely do like his tragic end. Even if Amon isn't, well, he's not really a good person, I actually did like this type of character in that season 3. And it was very interesting that there was a third party that was kind of in this whole war arc. And I think Amon's very hated and just seen, oh, he's just a dick. There's no motivation. He's just a one-sided villain. No one cares. Who cares? And I just feel sad because we see that there was humanity. Obviously, all that humanity was kind of gone through his ambitions. But I just really like Amon, and I just really wish people didn't just judge him by one-dimensional things. I just really like those type of characters.
I like Amon
But
quite a
definitely-
bit. One of my favorite characters in GX for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah,
cool
I think he was
character.
a really well done minor villain in GX, and I really liked his end.
Ambitions.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Okay, so who's next? I'm going to leave myself for last because I have a lot to say about my character. Michael,
Okay.
and Forte, and Yuto, you guys can decide who can go next between the three of you.
Well,
we'll go with
actually-
Michael.
I will say, Forte, you should end it off last because you know what character I'm going to talk about. I'll go right before you.
Yeah. That's fine. I'll go right before Sam. So we'll do Michael,
so
then
Michael,
Yuto,
Michael,
and then me.
Yuto, Forte, and then we'll end with me because
Yeah.
this is getting long.
That's right.
Michael,
Wait.
go.
Who else remembers when we were talking about characters who only got their filler, they got their arcs and filler?
Yeah.
Oh yes,
I
sir.
do.
I remember that.
I remember that.
I'm talking about Eric, no last name given, Cobra Fairy Tale.
Fair enough. Go ahead.
what's
You guys
up.
can debate about your fairy tale. I know nothing about that shit.
Yeah,
So-
I like Cobra. Cool character.
Yeah,
Cobra's a very cool character. I just wish he had more time with the girl thing. I
Oh
really
yeah,
wish.
yeah, no, yeah. That was out of left field. Don't know what like we know it. Just nothing ever happens on
Cubelius
screen.
or whatever her name
Yeah,
was.
Cabellios.
Cabalion, the legendary Pokemon?
Yes.
Yes.
She's a giant like goat.
That's hot.
Well, no,
No.
she's a giant snake.
I know, no, yeah, I know, but
Monster Musume.
a little bit, but no. So we meet Eric Cobra, no last name given, in like during the Rashion phase, and after he gets beat up by Natsu and we never see him, and we don't see him, he just kind of shows back up in during the Tartarus arc.
Oh, he comes in the dragons. The
No,
Into the Magic
I know,
games.
but it's Tartarus.
Okay.
No. Was he? Was he the Grand Magic Games? He might have been.
Yeah, he
was
helped
in
to fight a
Grand Magic
dragon.
Games.
Yeah, he helped to
Regardless,
fight a
he's
dragon.
there, but we don't really see anything of him. He actually started doing stuff during the Tartarus arc, but it's kind of a shame because the anime of Fairy Tail just kind of fills in everything that the manga just doesn't do. Because
Yeah,
That sounds fun.
you don't know about the anime has so many anime-only flashbacks to all their backstories that just never happened in the manga, which would make so much sense if it was in the manga, but it never happens.
Mhm.
There's also a complete filler arc where we explain how he lost his eye, what the hell happened, and everything to do with him and Cabellios, which is never ever stated in the actual anime and the actual manga.
Okay.
It just sort of
yeah.
all
But
happened.
that guy does break him out of
all off
prison
screen.
so that he can fight the poison dragon.
Jalel
Mhm,
Fernandez.
because he is a dragon
Yeah.
slayer.
Right.
Jalel Fernandez does it, doesn't it?
No, before Jalal forms
No,
his team, what's his face? That's
It
actually
was
a
the
member
guy
of
with the
Fairy Tail,
glasses
but not
in
member.
Fairy Tail.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. He breaks him out of
It was
prison so that they can
Dorenbolt. It
fight.
was Dorenbolt. It was actually Dorenbolt. Not,
Yeah,
not
it's the guy that erased his memories so that he wouldn't remember he was a member of Fairy Tail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember this one. I remember this one.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert: the one who
Spoiler alert.
blanked his
in
own
case you
memories.
care. This guy was like 40
Fairy
chips.
Tail sounds like a mess, bro. This
It
shit
is a
sounds
mess.
like
It's a very bad manga. Very bad. I wasted so much years reading that.
I wouldn't call it bad. I would
I
just say
would.
he got.
I
It's
would,
extremely
but
mediocre.
you two, we're not here to talk about how bad stuff is. We're here to talk
Right.
about underrated characters. And
So-
honestly, I think Eric deserved a lot more than what he got during the story of Fairy Tail. That he was out of all the Dragon Slayers that we knew existed, he clearly had like history with like the Tower of Heaven and a bunch more stuff to do with them with Cabellios that we just never see. It's all implied, done off screen, or in filler arcs, which for all intents and purposes aren't canon.
Right.
But would that make him underrated? That is the question.
Yeah.
Because if he
yeah.
is,
I
mean,
think he's pretty underrated.
I do think he's underrated because everything to do with him is nothing. We get to see nothing to do with his actual character.
In canon,
Yeah.
most people overlook filler, just like that Naruto character.
Everyone overlooks filler. If it's filler, then for all it's worth, it's not canon. Doesn't matter.
I will
say-
say the only thing that filler added was that scene where he meets his the snake Cubelios
Yeah,
in the human
Cubelios.
form, and
Why did she turn
he
human again?
mentions.
And
So
the
it
entire
was
reason
the
how he lost his
manga
voice-
only. It didn't show in the anime. Makarov actually cures her, like she was turned into a snake. So he cures basically, turns her back into human.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
So
they
this
didn't
was in
show
the
that.
manga only, so it was very confusing.
But
I had
also,
to search
like,
it up.
why-
also in the
why is she
anime,
a
it shows
human?
all the rest of the members of Jalel Fernandez's little crew and
Yeah.
why they are the way they are now.
Yeah, I did
But-
like Jalal.
Again,
but
anime only doesn't matter.
yeah, it was
Uh,
so
that's
weird.
I don't
and
think he's anime only. He's only one prominent in one anime only arc. He still has a lot of arcs with
No.
that.
I didn't say that. I said all the like prominent character development with him and the rest of the group that eventually join Jalal.
Yeah,
It's all
yeah.
anime only.
right. The rest of Rossi on Sace is just
Yeah, it's all
they don't
all
get
anime only,
much.
which is really unfortunate. But
Yeah.
Fairy Tail's a goddamn mess.
That's
That's what I
a
got.
shame. So who's going next? Yuto, go ahead.
Hey, Sam,
Yeah,
are you gonna do the last?
Yes, I said
Yeah,
I'm going
Sam's
last.
doing last.
I said
so.
that multiple times.
Yeah, you're
Ooh,
going, and then I'm going, and then Sam.
Yep.
I know it's probably yes from. Anyways, all right, all right. My final character, which I honestly ended this final character just so Forte could do a really good
Segue. Yes,
segue. Yes, segue.
that's right.
But I'm going with
Segue.
Colonel Smirnoff. Colonel Smirnoff from Gundam 00.
Trash show.
Colonel Smirnoff,
Next
Colonel
character. Trash show.
We're not
Gundam
talking
trash.
about Mewtwo here.
Bro,
We're not talking about
you-
Pokemon here.
Why you spoiled my pick, bro? You spoiled my pick. What a bitch. Hey yo, you.
Cut that out. Cut it out. Cut it out. Cut it out. Let's just do that.
I talked
Don't
about
make
that.
don't make jokes about just don't. I mean, if we're just gonna do it, just
No,
just
go
cut it
ahead.
out.
I can't be bothered to edit any more stuff in this. I already have to do a ton of editing. Just go ahead, brother.
Yay!
Go ahead.
Insulting!
Go ahead, bitch. The point of a podcast
Well-
is never back and forth, but Yuto's like, bro, jokes? Jokes?
I made
Humans
another
make
joke.
jokes?
I mean, you said spoiler. I just made a note.
I didn't say
But, yeah.
spoiler. I said Gundam 00 Steam.
Tell us about that Smearnoff.
Yeah, I said mute. But yes, I think.
Get on with
Michael,
it.
Get on with it!
Go with it! Go! Bye!
Go!
Anyways, what I was saying, because these clowns interrupted me, was because Colonel Smirnoff is actually Chad and a very prominent antagonist to the Celestial Being group. I'm just surprised no one really talks about Colonel Smirnoff outside of 00. Colonel Smirnoff, Chad, he's the tactician, obviously,
him.
of the HRL. Very, very, very well, very good soldier, very good tactician, and Celestial Being almost got destroyed because of Colonel Smirnoff's tactics. But we can see the humanity, and he has a lot of doubts about the military. He hates human research and human experimentation. He hates, and we really get to see his closer relationship, a father and daughter kind of relationship with this one character in 00, and I really like how it's explored throughout season 1 and
Say
season
your
2.
name.
I'm not going to say it just because I don't want to give too much about Colonel Smirnoff, but yes, he's a very prominent antagonist and a Chad. He just screams Chad. And in season 2, what he does, and he literally puts down all his biases, all his regrets, just so for his daughter-like character to be happy, puts all his like past regrets and all his anger and just gives up his he gives up for his daughter's happiness, and that just screams. I don't know how that doesn't scream Chad. Like, he's just amazing character, very well written character. Love his ideology of how a military should be. A man who always followed the military, but always followed his military and always did what was best for the citizens and best for the country. And I really loved him.
Yeah, he
Yes.
was best dad.
was
His
literally-
relationship with that character is one of my favorite things in 00. I know we're not saying her name for spoiler type reasons, of
We're
course.
not really a spoiler. I
Uh,
don't think so.
Yes.
I don't think so either. But
Is this the silverhead bitch?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not a huge spoiler. But I really did like his relationship with her. It's very wholesome, and to me, Smirnoff, along with obviously the character that'll be on my list in a second, is one of the things where you're looking at that the other side isn't villainous per se. They're just the antagonist to our protagonist being Celestial Being. They have a different view about military, and they have a different view about Celestial Beings' armed interventions, if you will. And yeah, I agree. He's
One
freaking
side is
Chad.
not inherently evil, but
Exactly.
they
Exactly.
have on opposite sides because of war and because
Yeah,
of the
he's the
circumstances.
personification of that. He's a Chad, best dad. I loved him.
And then I do like how they tried to do it with obviously a character in season 2 as well, even if I didn't like how they did it, but it meant to be a lot more, and I did like
Oh yeah, I knew you were talking about. Right.
that. Yeah.
So we can move on to Forte's character from Gundam 00 as well,
Oh.
I'm presuming, right?
Yep, it's great. So this character is on the thumbnail, I believe.
so.
But this is my favorite character from Gundam 00, and also one I think is severely underrated, and that is Mr. Graham Aker, aka Mr. Bushido. Graham has many names in 00, but he's also my favorite character in 00 for a variety of reasons. He's voiced by He's voiced by my favorite voice actor in anime, which is Yuichi Nakamura, and he just has this great personality. He's super Chad-like, but he also suffers from these internal demons. He's an amazing pilot in 00, and he brings this breath of fresh air to 00 that I like seeing. He's truly a great pilot, but he's also portrayed as an underdog throughout the entirety of the series. In a world of innovators, super soldiers, innovades, and aliens, Graham Aker is one of the best pilots that's just a straight-up normal human guy. He's a military man at heart, but he also cares so much about his comrades, about fighting for his cause, and all that stuff. Graham Aker is a character that Also, like Aragaki on my list, kind of exemplifies PTSD in the Gundam series 00. What's so great about him is as he's fighting along and fighting for his side, he loses so many comrades along the way that he slowly falls into depravity, which leads to his season 2 persona, Mr. Bushido. One of my favorite lines that he has as Graham Aker before the final movie of 00 is that the closest, if you love something it's along the lines of, if you love something so much it can turn into an obsession. Graham Aker loved fighting for his cause, and he loved fighting for his allies, and being a true what should I say, a true soldier. But as more and more, what you gonna
He
say,
was
Yuto?
obsessed with Gundams and the power and what it can bring and fighting
Right.
against. Yes.
His love was fighting. He has a cool quote in Maxi Boost, which I'll bring up, which it's pretty much canon at that point. It's just a quote he says. But he loved fighting, and as he kept fighting and fighting, he would lose more and more and more of his comrades. He would attend funeral after funeral after funeral, to the point where he had nothing left. All he had left was the love and the desire to defeat the Gundams. In his mind, all the Gundams were the same. He equated the thrones with being a part of celestial being, and the thrones were the ones that had continuously killed his comrades over and over. So his love for wanting to surpass the Gundams became an obsession when he had nothing left, as far as comrades, as far as loved ones, anything left. So he gave it all to pretty much fight the Gundams, which led to his persona of Mr. Bushido. And a lot of people hate this persona, but I love this descent into depravity. It kind of reminds you a little bit of a previous character that we talked about, which was Gohan Nezuka. And at this point, he separates himself from all his comrades. He only fights for himself and devotes himself completely to the way of Bushido. And his only want and goal and obsession is to have a fight with a Gundam. That's what he lives for. He has nothing left that he's really fighting for. He doesn't care about the causes he used to care about, fighting for his side. He only wants to fight and either win or lose to a Gundam. Almost to the point that if he does in fact lose against a Gundam, he will kill himself. That is the point he's at. And I just liked how they portrayed him going from the first person he became to the person he ended at, Mr. Bushido. And then finally, after his fight with Setsuna at the end, he is able to understand Setsuna, and they're able to reach an agreement that that kind of fighting isn't what we're trying to reach. We're trying to reach fighting so that we can all understand one another. There has to be peace once all the battles are done, and we can only reach that by reaching true understanding. And that's the core message of Gundam, and I feel like it's just exemplified so well through Graham and his starting character to his end character, as well as to the end of the movie, where he quotes Setsuna and said, "You said you were going to live, so why are you hesitating? You must live for the future." And it's one of his most powerful quotes, I feel like, in all of Gundam, and one of the most powerful quotes of the series. And also his personification at the end is he kind of incorporates both of his personalities, his whole journey, where he says, battle is a soldier's true purpose, and I can't wait to get out there. He has that personification as Mr. Bushido, where and his first initial person is being Graham Aker, and the progenitor of the Graham Special, where he enjoys fighting, but he also believes in fighting for a cause, and that his cause now is to fight for true understanding, which is the theme of 00, and actually the thing that Setsuna FCA, the Gundam he's been obsessed with defeating through the entirety of 00, has taught him. All his loss, all his tragedy had led him to this point. So I love his character. I could go on longer, but I don't want to rant too long as we're reaching.
I
think Grand Am is definitely a character that came full circle. Definitely one of the greatest
full
aspects
circle
of the
character.
movie.
Yeah, and just his
movie
personality and voice actor is just phenomenal. I just love.
I think the movie hardcore saved his character. I think the movie, that's the one thing I will credit for the movie, is they saved Grand Am's character and gave a really good balance of his season 1 and season 2 persona.
Right.
He's serious, but he's still very enjoyable to see, and we can see that still cockiness living, but yet still seriousness.
Exactly.
And I really love how
he's
Grand
just
Am.
a true underdog. He would always surpass expectations, even though he's using a worse suit.
Exactly.
He was a normal human. It was great. I love those kind of underdog characters.
He was using
what he exemplified. Yeah.
In Yu-Gi-Oh standards, he was using a DM deck against the Arc 5 deck. Like,
Pretty
just
much, yeah.
pretty much. Like, he was underpowered. He was literally given a wooden stick against a gun.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it
And the
felt.
reason why I definitely wanted to put him on his list is obviously he's my favorite character, but people criticize his Mr. Bushido personality, but I just think that's very important for his overall development. And while I wanted him to return to himself, but I did enjoy seeing that journey. So yeah, that's my character.
Alrighty then.
Oh, you, Sam.
It's all on me. The spotlight's
Mr. has to end it.
Mr. What do you mean has to end it? Bitch.
Because we had a nice order before, but then you're like, no, I'm going
No,
last.
because this
No, Sam
character...
said he was going last.
I
so.
said I was going last from the beginning. I said that from
yeah.
the
Yeah,
beginning.
then.
You all just changed the order. Forte was the one who said for me to go first at the beginning. I'm like, okay then, I'll take it. Okay. So I'm going to go last with one of the most controversial characters in the list. Not controversial because he's a controversial character, but controversial because I think many people would disagree that he's underrated. I am going with one of my top 5 anime characters of all time, a character I could go on about for hours, and a character that was massacred by 4 kids. Mewtwo.
But we're giving you, like...
From the first Pokemon movie. And all of you are going to be like, man, I love Mewtwo. That guy's so cool. How are you saying he's underrated? He's a cool Pokemon. He's cool. Man, if you watch the 4Kids dub, then you know nothing about Mewtwo. You know nothing about the original intent of that character. Mewtwo, between dub and sub, the changes are insane. 4Kids clearly and very obviously simplified that character and made him into a more generic villain because they did not give enough credit to the viewers and the audience of their product, and it showed in the critical ratings for that movie back in the day. That movie did not do very well critically at all. Takeshi Shudo was the head writer of the Pokemon anime for the first 3 seasons and the first 3 movies, and Mewtwo returns.
Also was a part of...
Legend of the Galactic Heroes! He helped write the script for one of the greatest written anime of all time, according to the masses. It's one of the highest rated anime on MAL, which isn't to say much, but it's a very, very well considered anime, so I hope me bringing that to your attention helps me try and prove a point. Mewtwo between dub and sub, as I said, the changes are extraordinary. They completely changed a character who... I forced Michael to watch this movie in Japanese with me this week, and I hope he can admit that changes are insane.
Oh, yeah, it's very, very different.
Mewtwo is a very, very different character, and a far more human, ironically the most human, in my opinion, by a considerable margin, throughout every piece of Pokemon media, be it anime, games, anything, the best written character in the whole series. The tragic creation of that character, the radio dramas that were made that chronicled the birth and the sweat and the tears and the sacrifice that so many people put while chasing this unimaginable dream, trying to compare themselves to the gods. The first scene when Mewtwo is created is completely different. In the dub, he just asks, am I just this thing's shadow? And then gets angry when he gets told that you're just our slave to humans. In the original, he asks the simple question, is that my mother? Is that my father? And gets responded with no. You could say it's both, but you could also say neither. He then asks, was I then created by God? And he gets responded with no. The only things that are able to create life of this stature are gods and humans themselves. You are a product of science. And Mewtwo then simply questions, why was I brought into this world? Why did you drag me here? What is your purpose for me? And then just... the radio drama is The Birth of Mewtwo, chronicling all the stuff about Amber and his connections and his dynamics with Giovanni or Sakaki in the original, and the philosophical questions he asks about humanity. Like, one thing that's really big between the dub and the sub is that a big thing about criticizing the dub is the subplot about fighting is wrong. That subplot does not exist in the original. That whole thing, that does not exist in the original. That was completely added by the dub. The dub tried to turn the message, which in the original was a simple message of living creatures will always fight for territory. They will not give up a territory to someone of their own species without fighting to their final breath. And big differences include things like when Mewtwo talks to Amber in the original, the conversation that she tells him is, I don't know if you're a human or a Pokemon. The only things, in this world, creatures will shed tears when they feel physical pain. When they are hurt or they shed blood, they will shed tears. The only creatures able to shed tears in terms of sadness and pain and emotional loss are humans. And she's like, if you're crying to me right now, then you can't be a Pokemon. You can't be anything but a human, but you also aren't a human. And Mewtwo is forced to forget this person, but keep that the whole thing about it is that they force him to forget Amber as a person, but none of the lessons that she taught him, and none of the pain or the sadness. And this continues over and over and
Presumably,
over and over again. And then one of the big, like at the end of the movie, we all know that the Pokemon's tears are they cry when they see Ash. What happens to Ash? And that's the big thing that changes Mewtwo's whole mindset in the original. In the dub, it's just the protagonist did protagonist things, and he respects that, and that's part of it in the original. But the big revelations that he has, and the reason that he goes on this conquest for power, and his dislike and disdain for humanity are so much more deep and layered in the original. In the dub, it's just, I dislike humans, I want to rule over them. In the sub, or in the Japanese one, it's this question of, he believes that humans are incapable of ruling this world. He believes that humans on a consistent basis prioritize money and stature over the true, genuine definition of power. They compare themselves on the same levels as gods, and they look down on everything else under them as if they are nothing. He believes that it is an incapable species of ruling this world, and the reason that he goes on his conquest in the original is, I want to become the strongest, so if I am not a human, if I am unable to shed tears, then I will get myself to a point where I will never feel the want to shed tears again. Since I am unable to shed them, I will make it a point, I will make it my duty to get to a point where I will never feel the want to shed tears again and be unable to. And then the big revelation at the end is when he obviously sees the Pokemon's tears completely change everything, and he has this change of heart, and he begins this amazing character growth. Key things that I could just go on about different. In the original, there's like a scene where Mewtwo destroys the lab, and he questions to himself in the original, am I the strongest Pokemon? Am I stronger than Mew? In the dub, they changed it to him going, I am the strongest Pokemon. I am way stronger than Mew. They changed scenes like in the original when he declares his strike back in the original. He literally says, this is not a declaration of war or hatred, but to those that drag me into this world, I will strike back. In the dub, it's, I will rule this world and purge this planet of all who oppose me. Human and Pokemon alike, the world will heed my warning. The reign of Mewtwo. Huh?
I think that's sort of a big issue of how people conflate kids not being wise to kids being stupid.
Yes, and like a big thing, Mew in the original is not the hero of the movie. In the dub, Mew goes on about, it's not about being super strong, it's not about any of this, it's just about what you fight in the heart. In the original, Mew downright says, real is real, you are nothing compared to us. It's like another big change, one of the other big changes, is that we all know about the brother my brother scene, the Pokemon clashing, and the clones against the clones, right? In the dub, they make it that Mewtwo disables the Pokemon's attacks and forces them to battle. That doesn't exist in the original. These Pokemon in the original do not attack out of sheer pride. Sheer pride and want to prove of their species and that they deserve to exist. In the dub, they turn it into Mewtwo forcing them to fight for each other, turning off their special attacks so they just have to punch and kick each other. While in the original, they're just like, we're not going to use our special attacks just to prove that we deserve to exist. And just everything about this character is so different and so underrated and so overlooked, because the majority of people who watched this movie watched it in the dub. They watched it in English, and this massive misconception of this amazing character who is such a flawed specimen of a human, like a human, when he's not a human. It's ironic because the most human character in the Pokemon anime is the least human of all of them. It's insane, the ironies, the tragedies, everything that was put into this creature's creation, the blood, sweat, and tears, how many people died. There were so many people that died to create this thing.
Dead.
So many people died trying to create this thing. So many people lost their lives and their sanity chasing after this goal of reaching the level of the gods and controlling a Pokemon or a creature that could stand up to the gods and be on a level above it and be able to control everything underneath. The back and forth about the goodness of humanity and the moral justiceness of the world and how the humankind is generally flawed but views itself in such a high level. The back and forths between Giovanni and Mewtwo about if he'll let the entire world just be destroyed around him. And then that just in the dub gets turned to, oh, I dislike humans. They wanted to make me their slave. I'm a clone. That means I want to prove that I'm the strongest. In the sub, there's so many things different. He doesn't want to kill all humans. He doesn't want to rule the world. He just wants to prove he deserves to exist. He wants to, and he realizes in a short amount of time that the only way he'll get hurt in this world, which is the sad truth, the only people who get hurt in this world are the ones who stand at the top. The person who has the loudest voice in the room and the person who has the most power to them. The general populace will not listen to things and not take a heed or a warning from someone that they believe or something that they believe to be lesser than them. So Mewtwo realizes in his short time on this earth what he needs to do is to prove everything to this world is by being the strongest, is by standing at the top. I could go on for hours about this character. Hours.
I feel that.
But I adore this character, and I hate so much. I don't hate the 4Kids dub. In general, I don't hate 4Kids. I think they did a fine job for most of the Pokemon anime, and the Yu-Gi-Oh anime was fine. It's its own separate thing. I don't really care. This is my one time where I genuinely hate what they did, especially since Takeshi Shudo, the original writer of this movie, made such a step and was, when creating this movie and writing this movie, was urged not to write a story like this because they were really reserved and really scared. But he made the dive, he made the jump and said, no, this is a story that needs to be told. And he told the story, and I genuinely think for a Pokemon movie, and even as a movie, it is genuinely amazing. It is a genuinely amazing, gripping story that, yes, may have some pacing issues a little bit in, but that's just because it's a movie. The antagonist and the character of Mewtwo, oh my god, I love that character so much. And it annoys me how overlooked and underrated the character of Mewtwo. Not the Pokemon, not the cool badass who has all the cool powers and everything. The genuine human character of Mewtwo who struggles with understanding the fallacies and the confines of life and human standard was overlooked and completely butchered by a team who clearly did not care about genuine deep meaning and just wanted to simplify a character to make some quick buck. I hate that so much. I think I've done
interesting to see. Yeah, it would be interesting to see how Journeys implements Mewtwo, because I saw they were doing the original Mewtwo from that movie.
I am very scared, genuinely.
But it's the sub, so maybe it'll be...
But the head writer of all three of those movies passed away. It passed away 10 years ago. He's been dead for like 10 years, and Mewtwo's never been written by another writer other than that one person. So
yeah, that is kind of scary.
I'm not sure if I trust them with that. I really don't want it to be just them bringing him back for a cash grab. That would break my heart, because I love that character so much. And is the big reason. He's the former of, like, Mewtwo is the character that formed my love for tragic anti-heroes and characters like Lelouch and Aizen. That all came from Mewtwo. Mewtwo as just is that character that changed. I don't want to say he changed my life, but he really did. He really changed my life. He really hit different. He really hit different. And it's such an overlooked...
I think we all have characters like that.
He's such an overlooked and underrated character because the dub just turned him into a power-hungry generic villain and takes away so much of this character's genuine deep meaning and lore. Other than that,
I'll definitely have to check out the sub. I only saw the movie.
We need to watch that movie together. We need to watch that movie together. I want to watch that.
Definitely.
Yes, I definitely want to watch that movie in sub with you guys and just show you all the differences, because god damn, there's so many of them.
There is a lot. There was a lot.
I forced Michael to watch it. I think we're done.
I think we're done. So thank you, everyone, who actually watched this podcast. I know it was a very long one and very convoluted one. And we're still trying to work out the kinks, but I hope you enjoyed our takes. And
Yuto stole the host position from Forte, bro. He came in.
I took it. I took it. I forced it. Forte, you are making me end this podcast. All right. Anyways, thank you all for coming in. And I hope you guys... stay in tune for the next podcast.
Thank you for watching, boys. Later.
Big Brain Takes, the worst
thanks for
podcast
watching, guys. Take it easy.